if our system was functioning the way it should, like doctors should have time to go through those types of questions with their patients. But
Yeah.
because our system is just assembly line and just getting people through and checking boxes and hitting numbers, there is no space for that. And there's healing in that. There's healing in having someone listen and having someone really look at your
Gosh,
life in a
absolutely.
multifaceted approach. Yeah. And I believe that that is nursing at its core. So I like to say that there is no such thing as holistic nursing because nursing by definition is holistic. What
Mhm.
distinguishes nursing from the medical model is that nursing does look at all areas of the life. Nursing has
Yeah.
lost its way. Nursing has been kind of swallowed up by the medical model because of the way that our system is, and everything is so outcomes focused.
Mhm.
But I think that nursing just needs to find its way back to its roots and really take a holistic approach and really help people get healthy and give the power back to the patient instead of a paternalistic system that says, I have the answer, I know what's best for you, and here you go, instead of, wait, you have the power inside of you to heal.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Wealth Within Us. Today, I'm very honored to have Rachel with me. Rachel is a registered nurse and board certified holistic coach on a mission to support her clients' healing journey through the power of creativity. And in 2022, she gave life to heal the right way. And that is right, WRITE, and which is an interactive workshop geared to helping people discover their voice and become skilled storytellers. So she coaches clients in both a group and individual setting, helping them heal from their past, create confidence in their lives, and express themselves authentically. Rachel, I'm so glad to have you with me. You and I talk, so I think we have a lot to talk about today. So you're doing a lot in a short amount of time. So I would love to hear your journey on how you got here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Michelle. Super
Absolutely.
excited to be here. Yeah, and to have a conversation. So I would love to share a little bit about my story. I like to communicate in stories, so I always have many, and I
Yes,
will
as
try to.
you're creating storytellers in all of us.
Yes, yes, I think storytelling is an amazing way to, yeah, communicate and just get a picture of our lives and get to know ourselves better. So, I will start with my nursing career. So I worked as a registered nurse for almost a decade on orthopedic med surg unit. So this was a really fun job. I got to see all sorts of different patients from all different walks of life, all different types of medical diagnoses. And I've always wanted to help people heal. That's part of why I became a nurse. And I really had an opportunity to do that in that setting. Although over that tenure, over the 10 years that I was working there, I had a lot of misgivings.
Mhm.
And there was part of me that really enjoyed certain parts of the job. I loved supporting patients. I loved the critical thinking. I loved the adrenaline rushes that come with being a nurse. I loved thinking quickly on my feet. I loved the teamwork, the collaboration. There were a lot of beautiful parts of my job. But over the years, I became kind of more and more disenchanted with our medical system. And I started to question things. I started to wonder, like, why are we seeing patients coming back again and again and again with similar diagnoses? Why are we not talking more with our patients about preventative care? Why are we not talking about spiritual wellness, emotional support, all these other pieces that I felt as a registered nurse support patients' healing? And it seemed to me like the system wasn't necessarily built to heal people, although that sometimes did happen. The system was built as an assembly line. Like, we are the product, we come into the system, we make money for whoever's at the top,
Right.
and the cycle just repeats itself over and over again. And it slowly over time started to dawn on me that the ultimate well-being of the patient was not the end game of the system. And I'll just digress for a little bit. I experienced many things on the patient side that also made me ask those same questions. So when I was 18 years old, before I became a nurse, before I even started nursing school, or it was actually right when I started nursing school, I had to get my blood work done.
Okay.
And I discovered that I had hypothyroidism. And I went to my pediatrician and he sat me down. He spent about 15 minutes, wonderful doctor, explaining to me the ins and outs, what hypothyroidism is. And then he said, and you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. Here's a prescription. Here's a referral to an endocrinologist. And that was that.
Mhm.
Nobody questioned it. Nobody thought that it was strange. I was told, oh, this is super common. This is just something that happens. And so I didn't think much of it. And I've been on medication ever since. And around the same time, I also herniated a disc in my back. So I developed a bulging disc in my back. I developed excruciating pain running down my left leg. I was 18 years old. I could barely walk. I could barely
Yeah, that's
sleep.
young.
And I was in so much pain. And nobody could explain to me why this happened, how it developed. I
Mhm.
was referred to a spinal surgeon who told me that my only option was surgery. I could maybe get away for a few years without surgery, but I'm going to need it eventually, and I may as well do it now. And that set some alarm bells. Again, I wasn't a registered nurse yet, but I was wondering,
Right.
like, is there nothing else that could help me? Why is nobody explaining to me why this happened, where this came from? And thankfully, I did not opt for surgery. I used chiropractors and acupuncture and all sorts of different holistic modalities. Ultimately, yoga, I would say, is the thing that healed me, and I now live pain free. So
Yeah.
I don't have flare ups. I'm strong. I have a strong core, and I'm able to live my life pain free. And so I had different incidents like this. I have more stories, things that happened with my children, where the first line of defense was always surgery, intervention, medication. And it made me question, what about all the other things that we can do to support patients? What about all the natural and holistic alternative things that we can do? And so back to being a nurse for about 10 years, I'm working through the COVID-19 pandemic, and I was on the front lines of this, pandemic. It was a very, very scary time. I was literally wearing a hazmat suit in February of 2020, taking care of some of the first COVID patients in the country. And I also started to ask some questions. Why are we not, encouraging people to exercise, to go outside and get fresh air? Why aren't we mass prescribing vitamin D, which we know reduces,
Right.
viral load? Like, we know
Yep.
these things, and nobody was talking about it. And again, a lot of misgivings and a lot of questions and a lot of things that were really challenging my beliefs around the system. I was a young mom of children who were out of school during that time.
Yeah.
And so I would say the final kick in the pants, the final thing that kind of pushed me out the door of Western medicine, was I decided to speak up during the pandemic, and I decided to share my opinion with a reporter, which I thought was really valid. Look, I'm a registered nurse. I'm working on the front lines. I'm taking care of kids during the pandemic. I see the effects of the pandemic on our patient population. And I wanted to share my message, my truth, which was that I really felt that the shutdown was hurting people. And I wasn't saying that COVID wasn't real. I wasn't saying any of the things that were misconstrued later. All I was saying was, I'm a registered nurse working on the front lines of this pandemic. I see elderly neglect. We're seeing broken hips. We're seeing suicide rates skyrocketing. We're seeing alcoholics relapsing and coming in with liver failure. And I
Wow.
was just listing all these different things that I was seeing as a registered nurse, very professional, sharing my truth. A few days after I spoke to this reporter, I was contacted by my hospital and basically punished. My job was threatened. I was told that I'm putting patients at risk and all this kind of stuff. So I ended up staying at that job. I fought for my job. I pushed back. I was the union representative, so I was very involved in my union. I knew the ins and outs of our contract. I knew that I was being discriminated against because of my political beliefs, and I was able to hold on to that job. And I stayed at that position for another year and a half after this incident. But during that time, I decided, okay, I need to find a different way to be a nurse. And so that's when I looked into holistic nursing. I looked into nurse coaching. I started exploring alternative ways of healing, alternative ways of helping patients get healthy. And so that incident that happened was very harrowing. It was very traumatic. It really, really shook me,
Yeah.
especially because I have struggled with self expression in the past. And speaking up was really hard for me. I really had to push myself out of my comfort zone to do that. And then I was punished for it. So it was like my worst fears were realized. So it was such a challenging experience, but it also was a huge blessing because going through that showed me that, wow, you need to get out. Like, this system isn't about health. It isn't about keeping people healthy. And you need to find a different way to be a nurse and get back to your roots. So that's kind of how I ended up where I am, which is now I am full-time coaching. I do groups, I do one-on-ones, and I help clients get healthy in a holistic way through mindset work. I use a lot of creative expression. Writing, storytelling is one of the methods that I use, and I really help people get holistically healthy, help them in all areas of their life.
Wow, that is quite a journey. One of the things I picked up on that you said is that, you were discriminated for your political beliefs. And while you were telling your story, I'm thinking, wow, she said political beliefs where I wouldn't have even have used the term political. But I guess nowadays you would, because I would have thought, no, I'm speaking out, I think, what is right for humanity. So
Exactly.
it's not even, sometimes I think our political beliefs get misconstrued as like, no, I'm just trying to help people. I don't care what side of the fence or where you're from or anything like that. So it was almost just your opinion and your values were being put into question by saying that, which, I mean, even I think in school, we were taught, I don't know if they teach this anymore, but part of science is asking questions. And I think part of life is asking questions, because if we're not asking questions, are we even thinking? Are we using our talents? Are we using our brain? Or are we just sort of like subservient to whatever we're being told?
100%. I love that you brought that up because I think maybe at the time maybe I was naive, but I also thought like this isn't political. This is a registered nurse on the front line of a global pandemic speaking her
Yeah.
truth. That's all it
Treating
is.
whoever, I'm sure when people come walking in with whatever, if they fall
Yeah,
out of a tree or in a car accident, you're not asking them, are you Republican or Democrat or independent? Like nobody asks those questions.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And what I was seeing during the pandemic that I found so concerning is that everything was becoming politicized.
I agree.
So I'll give another example. Around the time that the vaccine came out,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty, I will say, agnostic, ambivalent about the vaccine. I don't want to take a strong stance one way or another. But when the vaccine started to roll out, I thought this is a new vaccine, and I was questioning: should I take it? Should I not take it? I don't know. What's it going to do to my body?
Right.
And in January, right around the time that the vaccine was new, I had two young women in their 30s come in with a stroke, which is very uncommon. In my 10 years of being a registered nurse, I had never seen a young woman with no pre-existing conditions, no abnormalities in their brain. Neither of them were on birth control. Neither of them had things that would predispose them to getting a stroke. And I thought, this is really strange. And I asked both these young women, does your doctor think that there's any link between the vaccine, because both of them had just received the vaccine? Does
Right.
your doctor think there's any link between the vaccine and you getting a stroke? Both of them gave me the same answer. And they said, the doctor said with 100% certainty that there is no link between the vaccine and my
Hmm.
stroke. And I thought to myself, this is a brand new vaccine. You
Yeah.
can't
There's been
rule
no
it out.
trials. There's been no
Yeah,
testing. So how do you know?
exactly. I
But
mean,
that's the
we
data
can,
anybody would
yeah.
be looking for.
Yeah. And I was like, you can prove that there's a link between things, but you can't prove with utmost certainty that there is no link to
Correct.
something that literally was just rolled out. And so I thought to myself, look, it could be a coincidence. I'm open to that possibility. It could be a coincidence that two women got a stroke, right? It could have also happened because of COVID, because of the virus.
Yes.
But nobody's even looking into it. And I thought to myself, I don't want to take a vaccine where doctors are right away off the bat ruling out certain side effects and telling their patients with 100% certainty that this is 100% safe when you
Correct.
can't know that. You can't know that information. And so that made me really suspect. And I felt like politics were making their way into healthcare when healthcare should not be
Yeah.
political, right? We should use, like you said, critical thinking.
Mhm.
Science is all about questioning things, and
It
nobody was
is.
questioning things. People were being silenced, and I was silenced. And so that really made me think, oh my gosh, I need to get out of this system. I really feel like I'm a cog in a wheel of a system that is hurting people. So,
And that I
yeah,
believe I would genuinely say it's broken. It's a
yeah,
broken system, because the system that's meant to heal people, to make them feel better, that job is not being accomplished. And I just read a statistic that said that our generation is the first generation to have its life expectancy shortened.
yeah.
So I think that's a pretty telling statistic, no matter what you're looking for. And I wouldn't just I wouldn't even just blame one thing, to be honest. I mean, our environment, you know, whatever you think about all the cell towers that are going up, what's in our food, GMOs, what's in our water. I mean, it's a multitude of things. I personally don't believe it's just one thing that's contributing to this statistic. I believe it's a number of things that keeps compounding. And you, as being in health and wellness, I can only imagine looking at someone and not bringing in these things into some kind of play, which I don't think is being done.
Yeah, 100%. And that's my process when I coach. So
Yeah.
usually in our first session, I will do a holistic assessment, which means that we look at every area of your life. We talk about not just nutrition. I mean, we talk about body image. We talk about your financial wellness. We talk about your intimate relationships. We
Love
talk
that.
about friendships. We talk about social
Yeah.
life. We talk about, are you exposed to toxins, to chemicals in your home? We talk about, we really just go into every area of your life, which again, if our system was functioning the way it should, like doctors should have time to go through those types of questions with their patients. But
Yeah.
because our system is just assembly line and just getting people through and checking boxes and hitting numbers, there is no space for that. And there's healing in that. There's healing in having someone listen and having someone really look at your
Gosh.
life in a
Absolutely.
multifaceted approach. Yeah. And I believe that that is nursing at its core. So I like to say that there is no such thing as holistic nursing because nursing by definition is holistic. What
Mhm.
distinguishes nursing from the medical model is that nursing does look at all areas of the life. Of life. What was so revolutionary about Florence Nightingale and why she is considered the mother of modern nursing is because when she was nursing during the Crimean War, she was looking at spiritual health. She was asking people about their nutrition. She was making sure that people had clean air, clean water, clean sheets. She was a pioneer in germ theory because she understood, how do germs spread, right? And so she really looked at all areas of a patient's life, and that's what nursing is by definition. Nursing has
Yeah.
lost its way. Nursing has been kind of swallowed up by the medical model because of the way that our system is, and everything is so outcomes focused.
Mhm.
But I think that nursing just needs to find its way back to its roots and really take a holistic approach and really help people get healthy and give the power back to the patient instead of a paternalistic system that says, I have the answer, I know what's best for you, and here you go, instead of, wait, you have the power inside of you to heal. I mean, if you cut your finger a week later, your body knows exactly what to do. Your body knows how to heal itself. It's amazing. And we don't
But
talk about that enough because our system is so driven by profit.
it is. And I think you kind of said it right, where we do need to be taking that power within ourselves, almost taking that power back. And I also heard you say that the system is also very outcomes focused. And I have a hard time believing that because I look at the outcomes that are coming and the outcomes aren't good. So,
Right.
exactly what is the unspoken outcome? To me, it appears that the unspoken outcome is to keep them in the system. Whereas to me, the expected outcome, get them in, solve their problem, whether it's, I think, stress, your lifestyle, the environment that you in, what's your family like, what's your job like. There's so many factors that have nothing to do with so many of the things. I mean, like diet and stuff. I think that diet is obviously hugely important, but if you're looking at just diet alone and not stress factors and mental, emotional health, like you said, so it's like, well, what is the outcome that is their standard, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I wonder the same thing. I mean, from working inside the system, my recollection is a lot of these outcomes are like numbers on a sheet in a spreadsheet, and they do measure things like readmission rates or hospital acquired infections. Like they look at, infections that are acquired from, catheters or IV insertions. And those numbers are important, and they serve a purpose. They're kind of in response to people realizing that a lot of people go into hospitals and come out sicker than they went in, and so those outcomes are kind of like in response to that. It's almost like, oh, let's mitigate that. And again, it's a good thing. We should mitigate hospital acquired infections, but
Right.
we're not getting to the root cause issue. We're not looking at,
Yeah.
are people getting healthy and staying healthy. Are they leaving the hospital with more education about their condition than they came in? Are they understanding what they need to do to get healthy? Or are they going to be back in here for the same issue 2 weeks later, which is something I saw time and time again as a nurse, and it really,
Yeah.
really frustrated me.
And I think you said it perfectly. Where is the root cause? You go into a hospital because I don't know, for example, you were in a car accident. So say I'm in a car accident and I hurt myself or I fell off a ladder or whatever the situation may be. I go into an ER. I know what the root cause is and I can fix it. And those are obvious root causes. You put a cast on the leg or whatever it is and you're done and your body knows what to do to heal. I mean, we do that, right? You put
Yeah.
on a cast, your body heals it. I
Yes.
think it's already
Yeah.
your body knows what to do. But where's it comes I feel to chronic care is where it's really broken. I will dare to say, I think we have a pretty good emergent care system.
I agree. I
Honest. I
agree.
mean, maybe some other things around it, including expenses and payment, all that other stuff. But at least as far as the care is concerned and the services, I think that's pretty good system. You go in, you kind of get that emergency thing fixed and you come out. But it's the chronic care that most people are dealing with.
Yeah.
And hence the word chronic. I think the whole idea of chronic care is to get out of the
Right.
chronicness of
Right.
whatever your issue is. And how do you get out of that unless you're looking for the root cause?
Right. Right. Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah, and I worked orthopedics, and I found orthopedics really satisfying because most orthopedic patients, they come in with a very specific issue that needs to be fixed. And it's very gratifying because, we would do a knee replacement and the patient would get up walking the next day, somebody that was hobbling the day before or in a wheelchair. And then they get up the next day and they're walking. And so I always like to really emphasize the things that are working in Western medicine. Western
Right.
medicine has a lot of wonderful attributes, a lot of things that are working. Having said that, I'd be frustrated because I'm like, if we could rewind 20 years, we probably could have prevented the knee from deteriorating in the first place.
Right.
But at the same time,
So right.
credit where credit is due. And Western medicine is really good at emergent care, surgical care, orthopedics. There are certain areas where Western medicine really does a great job, and we should definitely, give credit where credit is due. But when it comes to chronic conditions,
Yeah.
when it comes to overall wellness, when it comes to, life satisfaction, I think we're failing horribly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agree. And I would dare go full circle back to where we kind of first started with the medical system's been politicized.
Yeah.
And you kind of come in and you're already put on a box, inside a box. And I feel that the treatments are as well. It's one treatment or another, and that's what Medicare, Medicaid justifies. But where is the acupuncture? Where is essential oils? Where are the chiropractic care, the energy workers? Where is all of that in our system? And instead, if you believe in that kind of stuff, you're now put into another box.
Right.
So I feel that the healthcare system has also been very politicized. Whereas if the two could just find a way to work together, I feel that there's a lot more that is in common, at least with the people in the system that are working, than there isn't.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think that's the way forward. I think that's what people want. They
I
want
agree.
they want a balance of both. And on a positive note, like we are starting to see shifts. There is a huge holistic nursing movement. So there are a lot of holistic nurses that are asking the same questions that I'm asking. And a lot of them are, I mean, it's kind of a two-pronged approach where many of them are building new systems outside the old system. So they're opening private practices, they're going into Eastern medicine, alternative medicine, integrative medicine, functional medicine, and they're kind of creating a whole new realm, a whole new way of delivering healthcare. And then on the other side, there are many of those nurses that are staying in the system or leaving and then re-entering the system and saying, hey, look at all this stuff that we could bring back into the system. And so I do think that the future is bright. I think one of the foundational things that need to happen is incentives need to change. So right now, doctors are incentivized to do more
Right.
procedures. The hospital can bill for every procedure. Whereas if, Medicare and Medicaid, a lot of these insurances that reimburse, if they can change their incentive structure so that
Yes.
hospitals and clinics are incentivized to actually keep their patients healthy. And I think that is going to shift, and I think that is going to change.
I
And I
hope
think that,
so.
yeah, and I think nurses are going to be on the forefront of that.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
I also know just from my knowledge that bonuses for nurses and doctors are also equivalent to the amount of people coming through. So the
Yeah.
more sick people there are, so to say, the more your bonus is. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of strange things going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have decided to take yourself out of that system. So tell me more about the way that you work. So now that we've sort of defined that the system is broken, and we've also sort of defined, well, this is where it's good and this is where things are very beneficial to people. Let's see the other side of things, which is what I'm much, much more interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd love to talk about what I do in my practice. And again, there are many nurse coaches out there doing lots of really, really cool things. There are so many
Yeah.
different pathways to go down.
Well, and I also
But
hope that any nurses who are feeling in the same situation that you are, I'm also hoping that you bring, hey, you don't have to stay in this system. Like
yeah,
you can still do what your passion is by bringing health and wellness to people, because that's really what we all want. We all want health and wellness, both mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And there are other ways outside of the traditional healthcare system to do that.
100%,
And I
100%.
would also dare say that even insurance companies, I think, you're starting to see shared insurance companies. You're seeing a lot of even I came across in my networking traditional family doctor who's operating his practice in a different way as well, where it's almost like a monthly thing, and just operating. There's a lot of new things that are coming on the horizon that are already out there if you just seek it. A lot of functional medicine docs operate the same way, so there's a lot coming that I think is really that is already starting to merge the two.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's going to take a lot of creativity, and you have to be really smart and figure out how to navigate the system, how to use things in your favor. But yeah, it definitely takes a lot of creativity.
Right.
So yeah, and that's definitely
And
so my
outside the box thinking.
exactly outside the box thinking. And so my coaching practice revolves around creativity. I would say that's kind of a core concept. And part of where that came from was I would meet so many nurses over the years that had creative dreams in the past. So maybe
Mhm.
their story is that they majored in dance in college and then, they were worried that it wouldn't pay the bills. So they went into nursing, they went to nursing school, or somebody, wanted to be an interior designer. And then maybe they had a family to support and they decided to go to nursing school. So I would meet nurses over and over again that like had these creative dreams, had these creative aspirations, and then kind of put them aside. And back to like the nursing model being swallowed up by the medical model, the way that nursing is structured now, it's all about checking boxes. It's all about protocols, and protocols are very important. I'm all about, systems, and systems are really important, but nurses don't necessarily have an outlet for that creativity, for that self-expression.
Yeah.
And
And every
so,
individual is different. You and I may have the same issue going on with us, but we're still completely different people. And that chronic condition needs to be treated differently.
yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah. So nurses have to be really, really creative. I mean, I work night shift and sometimes we didn't have the resources, right? It was late at night and there weren't a lot of, ancillary staff. And sometimes we'd have to get really creative if there were supplies that were missing, if the pharmacy was closed.
Mm.
And so nursing takes so much creativity, but nurses don't necessarily think of themselves as creative beings. And so my practice, which doesn't only serve nurses, I really serve anyone, but I have definitely
Right.
had a lot of nurses go through my programs, is all about teaching you how to heal through the power of creativity, through the power of self-expression, through the power of storytelling, how to tap into storytelling as a healing modality. I mean, storytelling is as old as time. As long as there have been humans, there have been people sitting around a fire telling stories and connecting in that way. And
And
there's
a
actually
core
a
way of
really
passing down information from generation to generation as well, and preserving their
exactly,
history.
exactly, yeah. And there's a healing that happens when you tell a story. I read recently that there are certain indigenous cultures where if somebody in the tribe is sick, they would ask them, well, when is the last time you told your story? That is actually seen as a medicine.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was so beautiful.
That is.
And yeah, yeah. And it ties into my own story a little bit because my grandparents are all Holocaust survivors.
Mhm.
My maternal grandparents went through Auschwitz. They experienced really, really terrible
Trauma.
things, trauma, really serious trauma. And I really believe that a lot of the way that they processed their trauma, a lot of the way that they worked through some of the things that had happened to them was by storytelling. So when my mom was growing up, she didn't hear a lot of Holocaust stories. It was still too raw. It was very difficult for them to talk about it. By the time I was growing up, my grandparents would talk about it all the time. They would tell us stories
Wow.
from the camps. Yeah. And I think part of that is there were Holocaust survivors that wrote their story, that wrote memoirs. I mean, Elie Wiesel is probably the most famous one. And they told their stories and they kind of gave other people that had had that experience, they gave them the language, they gave them the vocabulary
And
to
the
talk about.
permission.
Yes, and the permission. Exactly. Exactly. And so that's every time they would tell their story, a little bit of the pain was released. They were
Yeah.
able to tell the story in an empowering way. They were able to, see themselves as the survivor, not necessarily as a victim, but as a survivor, as somebody that went on to create a life despite all these things that were inflicted upon them. So I really believe so strongly that learning how to tell our story, learning how to take ownership of what happened to us, it's actually a medicine. It's actually like a medicine that we're not using, and we can use it in so many settings. I mean, in hospitals and corporate, there's so many places where we could bring that in. The idea of telling our story as a medicine.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, there's so much that we get out just by telling our story. I think sometimes, even just in my own journey, I think the thing I always warn myself, don't become the victim of the story. Tell it as your story so that you can accept it. And I love what you said is that personal responsibility. While we may not have been personally responsible for what happened to us, we still have to take personal responsibility for how we get through so that we can live a fulfilled life and not have an event control the rest of our lives so that we're constantly the victim.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So how do you walk your clients through that? Like what does a session look like with you? How does that look like?
Yeah. So my sessions are, I write with all my clients. So that's both in my groups and my one-on-ones.
Okay.
Right now I have a 16-week group coaching program called Heal the Right Way. And we write together as a group. So there's a coaching component. There's a place where you can come to the group, you can share, you can talk about what's going on. I often challenge my clients to do fun things, to go on dates with themselves. Sometimes I'll literally tell a client, like, your homework this week is to go to like Home Goods and smell the candles. Like, just walk around aimlessly and just smell the candles, because we forget to play. We forget to spend time with ourselves. We forget to give ourselves permission to just be, because we live in a culture where it's all about do, do, do.
Right.
And so, yeah. And so both with my groups and my one-on-ones, essentially there's a coaching component. So that involves a lot of deep listening, a lot of holding space, a lot of presence, a lot of asking the right questions to direct my clients to come to realizations on their own. And then we often will write together. I always write with my clients. So usually I'll bring a writing prompt. And when they're writing, I'm writing. I always like to tell my clients, I'm doing this work alongside you. Yes, I am your coach, but I do this work every day. This is like, I live this. And so I write with my clients, and then we all get an opportunity to share. So if it's in the group, we'll go around and we'll share. It's a really awesome opportunity to practice being visible, practice being seen in our vulnerability. And then same with my one-on-one clients, they'll share. And if there's time, I will also share. And we get to dive into, childhood stories. We get to rewrite, how we want to see our lives. Sometimes a writing prompt can be something as simple as, a sound from childhood, and that can take us somewhere, like thinking
Yes.
about something that happened in childhood, and it can bring us somewhere. To me, I think of like, okay, my grandmother had this big black wooden door, and there was like a knocker on the door, and you would like knock the door and you would hear that like knocking sound, and then you'd hear her walker like scraping across the linoleum floor, like coming to open the door. And there'd usually be like a smell of cinnamon or chocolate coming out of the oven because she was always baking. So something as simple as a smell from childhood can bring us back to a scene that can be like so sensory and so alive, and really just drop us into a moment. And it can be really, really just a powerful way to heal.
I love that. And I think that I think a lot of writing, would you call it automatic writing where it's almost channeled through you and you're like, I don't even know where I'm getting. And I've experienced this myself multiple times where you're just writing and you're like, I don't even know where these come, but it triggers these memories that are stuck
Yeah.
that are ready to be released from the body because, traumas and emotions are they get stuck in the body, which leads to disease and things like that. So I think writing is a great way to release those things that might not have come up.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I talk a lot about stream of consciousness writing, and a lot of my teachings revolve around The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. It's a beautiful book.
Mhm.
And she talks a lot about just sitting down every day and writing out your thoughts and seeing what comes through. And sometimes it's nonsense, right? Sometimes it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. Sometimes it's whining. Sometimes it's complaining. Sometimes it's just noticing what's in our environment. But it's a very grounding practice that brings us into a moment. And I encourage my clients to bring that sort of stream of consciousness channeling kind of energy into the writing prompts. And it's amazing. It's amazing what people are able to write. People that tell me I'm not a good writer, I don't know how to spell. My teacher in third grade told me that I'm a terrible writer. All these stories that we have about whether or not we could write, and then people write and they share it with the group. And so one person's crying, one person's jaw is on the floor, one person is like, "Oh my God, you just described my experience. How did you know?" And then this amazing connection happens because we're tapping into God energy. I mean, that's
Right.
what creativity is. It's a spiritual energy that flows through us. We get to co-create with the universe when we're creative. And this is a practice. It's something that we need to do over and over and over again. And we learn how to really create things, how to dance with the universe, how to create beautiful stories, and really get to weave our own reality.
I also feel that just listening to what you're saying, that one of the most important things that we often don't do is we don't take time to sit with ourselves. And I think by working with you or doing these different practices and writing, we're taking the time to sit with ourselves. And when we're not, it's just all this sound and all this stuff around us to keep us distracted from going in. But I truly feel, and I would love your opinion on this, that when we go inside ourselves, that's where the true healing takes place. And it's only when we can focus and give ourselves that time and space that that healing can become even deeper than anything else.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautifully said. And I could not agree more. I think I've lately really been bringing a somatic mindset into the writing. So, this idea of like soma just means the body. So, just like nervous system work, and really noticing our sensations, our nervous system when we write, and using writing as, yeah, exactly what you're saying, as a way to be with ourselves. The way that our society is structured right now, it's very much tries to distract us from ourselves, to
Yeah,
distract us from our emotions. There is no shortage of numbing agents everywhere you turn. I mean, there's
absolutely not.
TV and social media, and there's just so many things that are really just designed to help us avoid being with ourselves, which is the hardest thing to do. And I really think writing is one of the most amazing avenues to accessing that, to really being with ourselves, because what are we doing? We're just holding up a mirror and seeing what's in our heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really shocks me, my morning pages, especially at the beginning. Like when I started stream of consciousness journaling every day, it really struck me, first of all, how negative my thoughts were,
Mm.
and also just how repetitive they were, how I was thinking the same thoughts over and over and over again. And just by
Yeah,
holding
the
up a mirror,
programming.
exactly, exactly. And just by holding up a mirror and just seeing, oh, these are the thoughts that live inside my head. I don't need to judge them. I don't need to beat myself up. But isn't that interesting that every single day I'm complaining about the squeaky door that's been bothering me for 6 months? Like maybe I need to go get some WD-40, that's just a benign example, but like
Yeah, but still.
yeah, it's about being with ourselves and noticing what's present. And it's super, super powerful to combine this somatic awareness, this presencing with writing. It's such a powerful tool.
And I feel so often we'll feel cranky or on edge throughout the day and you really don't know why. And even if you stop for a moment and be like, I don't know why I'm so cranky. I don't know why I'm so cranky. I don't know what's wrong. But I think in times like that, when you are journaling or meditating or whatever, it's when those answers come to us. And with the writing, if you're not big into meditation, then write, I mean, how great. And how many people, I'm sure you encourage doodling,
Yes.
or
I love that you mentioned that, because I have a 14-year-old daughter and she's like a chronic doodler. And I'm just like, I know where you got that. I was that kid in class that I couldn't focus unless I was doodling or doing something else. And she says in the morning, she says in The Artist's Way, something that she says in there, she said, think of your morning pages as a doodle. So like artists, I mean, if you're an artist, you're supposed to just draw hundreds and hundreds of circles, right? You're warming up your
Okay.
wrist, you're getting used to making mistakes, you're just getting messy. And so that's kind of what morning pages are. It's like you want to be a writer, so write. Don't worry about the end product. Don't worry if it sounds good. Just sit down and write and see what comes out. And it might be garbage, right? But we need to get the garbage out of the way if we want that clear water, those thoughts to flow. And so, yes, writing 100% is a form of doodling. I love that.
And I think it's worth mentioning too that there is a difference between writing and typing it out on your phone or on the computer, because there is, and you can probably get into this way more than I, but I'll just bring it up, is the connection between your mind and the pen and your hand creating those movements versus tapping them on a phone or tapping them on a computer.
Yeah, 100%. I love that you brought that up because it's something that I talk a lot about with my clients, is that there's different ways to write and it's really just about noticing. So I encourage people, sometimes I'll have clients and they'll say like, maybe they have arthritis in their hands, or maybe they're getting bored with writing pen and paper. I tell them, okay, like experiment, see what it feels like to do voice to text, or see what it feels like to type in a Google Doc on the computer. See what it's like to use the Notes app on your phone. It doesn't actually really matter. They probably all have different benefits and different drawbacks. Right. But the idea is that whatever's up here in our brains, we're letting it out somehow. We're turning on the tap and we're letting things flow. And so I really encourage people to experiment with different ways of writing. And I'll just share a really fun fact that happened to me last year. I have physical morning pages. I have a morning pages on my phone. I have like notebooks all over the place. And I also have an online digital morning pages journal. And I type in it most days. And last year at about like September time, I actually maxed out a Google Doc. So like I couldn't type anymore because I had used too many characters or whatever. Like I had literally reached the max limit of how large a Google Doc could be. So I felt very, very accomplished. Yeah. Yeah. Apparently that's possible. So
how do you feel about, and I've read and I've done these things too, where, you get something out and you're like, I'm going to burn it tonight. Like, I'm going to burn that thing up. So like, how do you feel about stuff like that, where people are, okay, I wrote it out, I got rid of it, and now I'm releasing it?
Yes. Yes. I think that's an amazing tool. And Julia Cameron talks about this in The Artist's Way. For a lot of people, and I hear this all the time, a huge barrier to writing is the fear that somebody's going to read what you wrote. And so she advises, if you're in that situation, burn it, put it in a manila envelope, throw it in a river, whatever, get rid of it. Because morning pages are not meant to be read. They're really, again, just kind of like that garbage that lives in our head. And again, that practice can shift and change, and it's all about making it your own. So I say that has definitely shifted for me over the years. I definitely will go back and read my morning pages, but that's not their primary purpose. Their primary purpose is for the present moment. It's to clear what's in my head. So if somebody wants to like throw it out, burn it, especially if you got out something that's like really like dark or emotional or heavy or and it can be really, really cathartic and just kind of like a spiritual release to like burn it.
And I'm sure all of us have shame or regret or whatever, disgust around a certain topic or something that we've experienced or done. And it's like, we don't want people to see that stuff, but what a feeling to get rid of it and just know that I can burn this.
Yeah.
And just get rid of it and get it out of my life, because I think even the process of burning it is another form of release.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, that is amazing. So what else do you work with on your clients? So like, you do the journaling. How else do you work with your clients?
Yeah, so I like to say my coaching is really a balance of like right brain, left brain. So I love the journaling. I love the writing. I love the spiritual piece. I love the creative expression. I also love a good spreadsheet. I love financial coaching. So I'll do financial coaching with my clients. And that's something that's super, super fun. I basically have like a spreadsheet that I go through with clients. And sometimes it's literally just about the clarity. Like I've worked with so many people where they have so many fears around finances. They have so many stories around money, and money is a very, very,
right.
Yeah. It's a very,
it's a big,
it's a very charged.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's a very, very charged subject. And so I'll sit down with clients for the first time before we even look at your monthly budget, before you look at your income. We sit down and we look at your assets review. Like, what is your net worth? And I've worked with so many people that don't know what they're worth. And I can tell you so many stories. Like I had one woman that I worked with. We just did one session. We just did one financial coaching session. And she's a nurse. She grew up in foster care. She was not given any financial skills. And her story was that she was not good with money. She was a failure. She was great at a lot of other things. She was a great mom. She was great at work. But when it comes to money, like that's just not her thing. And I said, okay, well, let's go line by line and look at your bank accounts. Let's look at your debt. I'm going to hold your hand. I know this can feel really challenging, but I'm here with you. We're just going to go line by line. We don't have to make it mean a whole lot. And she finished this spreadsheet and she's like, wow, I'm worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, first of all. So no, I'm not bad with money. And then she sent me like a text message like 6 months later. And she's like, I bought a house, just based on this ability to realize I do have money in the bank. I do, I am worth a significant amount of money. And sometimes it's the opposite, right? Sometimes we go through and it comes out and it's like, oh my God, I have whatever it is, $100,000 in credit card debt. But at least we have that knowledge and we can start working towards a solution, as opposed to what a lot of people do when it comes to their money story is they bury it, they make it murky on purpose, they make it really, really complicated. Sometimes I sit down with someone and I'm like, why do we have 20 bank accounts? I don't know. Let's consolidate. Let's get rid of some of these. Let's make it simple. But can we get like a clear picture? And it always starts with like knowledge and clarity, and then we can work towards a solution. So finances, wealth, money. I love talking about this kind of stuff. Actually, Julia Cameron talks a lot about in her book, In the Artist's Way, because a lot of artists have the mindset that you cannot be an artist and wealthy. This whole idea of like a starving artist, and artists need to struggle, and I can't be an artist and have financial abundance. And so she really talks a lot about trying to uncouple that belief that in order for me to be this, I have to be this, and to really just kind of tease that out and work that out. So I love doing a little bit of financial coaching in my practice, definitely.
A lot of spiritual entrepreneurs, I think, feel the same way. They have a lot of a hard time with money as well. And I don't know what my issue is, but yeah, we'll uncover it one day. Well, I'm slowly uncovering my wealth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
And a
yeah,
lot of times, a lot of times it's also about like grounding into the here and now, right? Like we hear a lot about this. Like if you read about manifesting, or if you've ever read any of these
right.
books, I don't know if you've read like How to Solve All Your Money Problems Forever. There's all these amazing books out there.
Yeah, there's a lot
Money,
of books.
energy. Yeah, and a lot of the message that comes through is actually about noticing the wealth that's already here now in your life.
Yeah,
And
and
that can be
gratitude.
really, yeah, and gratitude and grounding in our blessings. And it can be really hard to do because a lot of us are raised, and it's not just the way we're raised, it's actually the way our nervous system works as a protective mechanism. We are primed to look at the negative. We are primed to look at what isn't working. And so our brains are designed to look for problems. So even when things are working, are going okay, we have a roof over our head, we have enough to eat, everybody's safe, I'm running water, all these things, but our mind is just thinking about what we don't have. And so we're trying to undo that conditioning and really ground into, well, what wealth has already arrived in my life? Like, where can I ground into? I already have abundance. I'm already wealthy here and now.
I think it's a big fight or flight kind of trigger too. And like you said, some people are like, I just want to bury that and not look at it. So it's like we kind of all have a little bit of, not all of us, but a lot of us have a bit of a flight or, oh my gosh, flight or fight mentality or approach to wealth and other things in our lives too. It depends on what it is. But I know money is a big one for a lot of people. And we're always, I know me, I'm always watching some manifesting video or something like that. And I will admit, I don't know if I get a lot out of them. I have to say, because it's a tricky one, I believe.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think
There's a
it's
lot of subconscious programming, a lot of deep political programming. There's a lot of programming, I think, when it comes to that some of us are still working through.
yeah.
But the point is that I think, and I've said this many times before, is that the biggest gift that you can give yourself is that time and that space to work on whatever, that time alone, to go on a retreat, to sign up with coaching. And money doesn't always have to be an option when it comes like this. There's plenty of stuff online, but when you can work more with someone, just know that you're investing in yourself so much. Oh my gosh, like the investment in yourself will pay off, I think, in almost every area of your life.
Yeah. Yes. You are the best investment.
That's so true. And then when you invest in yourself, it allows you to invest in other people. And whereas I think most of us take the approach of like, I'm going to invest in my kids and my patients if I'm a nurse, or my clients, or these people, and we want to help so many people, but so many of us are out there running around helping so many other people, but we're forgetting to help ourselves.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think working with someone like yourself can help unlock those doors as well.
Yeah, 100%. I've helped many, many people find fulfillment, shift their lives, change their money story, change their mindset. Um, and yeah, and it happens one step at a time. It's not some sort of gimmick or overnight, the
No.
way, again, I'll go back to our medical system, which everything is about a quick fix. It's about a pill. It's
Yeah.
about
Instant
problematizing everything.
gratification.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not how it works. Coaching is it's a process. It's a process, but it always starts with saying yes to yourself. I like to say to my clients, like, the biggest transformation actually happened on the sales call when you said yes to working with me. And of course, these 3 months, these 6 months, these 12 months, however long we're working together, there's going to be so much growth and so much transformation. But when you said yes to your vision, when you said yes to the
Uh,
possibility of living a different kind of life, that's when the transformation happened already.
and it's a choice. You're choosing to do that. So ultimately it's you. It's the choice that you're making, and you're choosing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that too. So what do you have to say for other nurses or other people that you feel are sort of in this same space that you are in? Because ultimately, I think we all try to help people, myself included. I try to help people where I've been or where I am. Like I've figured this out, and I want to help other people now, or I'm trying. That was why I started this podcast. I'm trying to figure these things out. I'm actively working on figure these things out. And I know other people are going to benefit as well. So I guess what I'm saying is I would love to have you, tell other people who are feeling that they're in that same exact position. Like, what would be your best advice to them, especially the nurses that are out there?
Yeah, I think I would say just take one step. I think there's an old version of me that would have said, especially because I'm somebody that kind of, I mean, it's not true. I was working for a long time while I was building my practice, but there was a point where I kind of, quote unquote, jumped off the cliff and just, dove headfirst into this kind of work. And I will say that comes with a lot of challenges when you just kind of
Mm,
jump in full force. And so I definitely think that just taking one step towards your dream, one step towards your goal, even if that step is figuring out what is your dream, what is your goal, what is your vision, what is it that you've always wanted to be since you were a little kid? What is that thing that ignites your fire, that, like lights your soul up? What is that thing? So maybe that step is just figuring out what it is, but just taking small steps towards the life that you want, because a lot of us wake up and think, what am I doing? I'm stuck in a hamster wheel. I'm squeezed between, laundry and dishes and trying to make a living. And a lot of people go through life really just feeling unfulfilled, but not seeing a way out, not knowing that there is a way to live a life that's more vibrant, that's more alive, that's more aligned with who you are and who you want to be. And so just take that first step, right? Maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's reaching out to a coach, whatever that is, just take the first step.
yeah, I 100% agree. And I recently, actually just today, heard a statistic and I actually wrote it down, that 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
Oh my gosh.
That's a real high amount. So I know there's a lot of people out there. But take that time for yourself and make that investment in yourself, because that was a very shocking statistic for me to hear today.
Yeah.
Part of
Yeah.
me hopes it's not true, but I don't
Yeah.
know. But that
Mm.
was what I'd heard. So Rachel, I love exactly what you're doing, and you are helping people out there, especially your fellow nurses, because you know where they've been. But even if you're not a nurse, I mean, it doesn't really matter where you've come from. It's like the journey sometimes has been the same.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you, and where do they go? How do they get in touch with you to get a little taste of what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. So on Instagram, I'm at Nurse Coach Rachel.
Hmm.
On Facebook, I am Rachel Dick Plonka. I also have a website, Rachel Dick Coaching. I have a free newsletter where I send all sorts of fun things, stories, writing tips, musings about life, whatever is going on. I have a free newsletter. You can find me all the other places. I'm on X, I'm on LinkedIn. Oh, and I have a Facebook group for nurses that are curious about writing called Nurses Who Write. So that's another awesome free resource for anyone that's interested.
Oh, well, that is amazing. Well, I'm so glad that you came on. Do you have any parting words to leave our audience with here?
Hmm. Yeah, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I love talking about holistic health. I love connecting with like-minded people. And so I really appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, I hope your audience really gets something out of this conversation.
I know that I did, and I appreciate people like you that I love to have on and share what you're doing because part of my goal is not just having a platform for this information, but also to help you help other people and grow your own business. And I think the more that we can help other people, the better off we are all going to be. And I think the more that we will realize that we are very capable of helping each other
Yeah.
without all of the external stuff. I think when we are put in our communities and we are all put to the test, it's the people closest to us in our family, friends, and communities that we go to and the referrals like yourself. So please reach out to Rachel. All of her information will be in the description on whatever platform that you are watching this on. And Rachel, again, I thank you so much for giving me your time and sharing what you're doing and how you're helping other people through creativity and writing.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you.
You are welcome. And thank you, everybody else, for listening to another episode of The Wealth Within Us. Right now, you can begin aging gracefully, full of energy, vitality, and overall wellness. But as time goes by, our bodies can start to show signs of aging. Until now, introducing LifeWave X39, the world's first product that activates our own cells. This breakthrough in regenerative science helps restore our bodies to a healthier, more youthful state. X39 uses patented phototherapy to elevate a copper peptide that signals cellular activation. Think of it as your internal repair system, generating younger, healthier cells that can rejuvenate your tissues and organs. Just one X39 patch applied daily is all it takes. Safe, non-invasive, and backed by clinical studies, this is your chance to regain control over your vitality. Don't miss out on the future of anti-aging. Experience the power of X39 today. Visit patchedlight.com and start living younger now.